Every who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton, but where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and no prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
Some of our best ideas have come from our publishers, and we have a number of vehicles for them to suggest ideas from, an annual survey of our publishers. I do a monthly CEO collaboration meeting with all of our publishers and me where they can share ideas, they can ask for new features, changes, anything like that. We also have a monthly franchisee roundtable where I'll demo a piece of new technology that we just deployed for them, and then also open the floor to anything else that they might want to talk about.
This is Small Press Big Ideas, a podcast about the business of local news in the United States. I'm your host, Paul Gewirtz. Small Press Big Ideas is about the opportunities and challenges that local news publishers are facing for their businesses. I'll sit down and talk with journalists, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and more in the local news industry to find out what's working, what isn't, and how the local news ecosystem can innovate and flourish in the 21st century. Okay, today on the podcast, I'm joined again by Michael Shapiro. Mike is the founder of TAPinto.net. I think he's the most recurring guest now on the podcast. So if you want to go hear his full story, you can go back to episode 1. And then you're on again, but I don't know what number it was. But you can scroll back in the feed and find Mike and hear all about his story and founding TAPinto and what kind of cool organization that is. So, Mike, thanks for joining me, man. Good to see you again.
Thanks so much for having me on, Paul. It's good to see you.
Yeah. So you'd reached out to me, like I said, you've been on here, I think maybe a year ago or less, and then about 2 years ago. But you guys have done a lot at TAPinto and Hyperlocal News Network. So I just invited you on to talk about that a little bit. But let's just start there. What have you done lately? What's the new stuff you've got going on?
Well, since the last time I was on the podcast with you, which was, I guess, about 9 months ago, we've done a number of new things here at TAPinto, which also benefits Hyperlocal News Network, where we help existing publishers by providing them with our content management system and technology, as well as optional back office services. And key to the things that we've been doing is our DIY marketing platform, which won first place for innovation by the Local Media Association in 2024. We've added several new elements to that DIY marketing platform, and those include, for example, real estate open houses, where now realtors can post their open houses on the publications of their choice. They can pay to have those published, and they can also, we added on additional options. For example, they can pay to have them, the open house appear in the daily newsletter. They can pay per day for it to appear in the daily newsletter, so they can select the dates that they want it to appear in the newsletter. They can pay for their content to be displayed without ads on them, and they can also pay to have their content posted on the TAPinto Facebook page for their community that they want to, but that they're posting the open house in. So that's one new element of the DIY platform. A second new element is we created a local deals and offers platform within the DIY platform, so that local businesses, the typical like mom and pop businesses that might not have the budget to do sustained larger advertising campaigns, can now post their deals and offers on TAPinto. It's like $50, post their deal and offer. For an extra like $5 a day, they can have their deal and offer posted and published in the daily newsletter. And they can also select to have it posted on Facebook as well. But we're really excited about that because traditionally, we really haven't approached those small mom and pop businesses to market on TAPinto, because for them, one, content marketing, which has historically been one of our biggest strengths, is not really something that like a mom and pop retailer understands or really has any ability to do. And then second is that those mom and pop retailers, their typical budgets, for marketing with a local news site or a local newspaper is typically like $200 a month or that kind of area, which, most of our marketing options that are, include content marketing and things like that are more expensive than that. So by creating this local deals and offers platform, we're able to help all these mom and pop local businesses that for many years now, we've wanted to help. It was more of a matter of creating something that would be effective and affordable for them. And now we have that. A third element of the DIY platform, new element of the DIY platform that we've built is something that came to me from actually a number of political advocacy organizations and lobbying firms where they approached me and said, hey, we need a place where we can advocate on issues, where we can advocate for candidates. So we developed a paid op-ed section for TAPinto, where they can pay to have their op-ed published. It's like $99 per TAPinto site. So it's very affordable for them to be able to do. And they're able to advocate for their positions or their candidates. In the last election, which in New Jersey just happened last week, we had literally dozens and dozens of candidates and political advocacy groups submit and pay for op-eds. And it's interesting because timing-wise, the op-ed platform went live in the second week of October. So we didn't have a lot of time to be able to get it out to people and stuff like that. Just in the short period that we had it out there, we had over $10,000 in op-eds published on TAPinto sites. So it kind of just goes to show the ability that platform has to really meet the needs of political advocacy organizations, candidates, lobbying firms, etc. And then the fourth new element of the DIY platform is now about 6 months old, 9 months old, 6 to 9 months old, which is legal notices. So now municipalities and other public entities can actually have their legal notices published on TAPinto. In New Jersey, the law has changed, but it's not effective until March 2026. Currently, entities can publish their legal notices if they want on a site like TAPinto, but it doesn't qualify under state law. We've already, though, had a number of public entities start publishing their legal notices on TAPinto. But starting in March 2026, there's a number of entities that can now publish their legal notices on TAPinto as of March 2026, and it does count under state law. And so we built this platform out that provides a lot of new features and flexibility for public entities as well as private entities that need to do legal notices at far less than what it was costing them to have their legal notices previously published, and with a larger audience. So it's a win-win for everyone, basically. And so those are the new elements of our DIY platform. In addition to that, we built a donation platform. And this came to us because every year I've asked our publishers, do you want the ability for readers to be able to support your sites through donation? At TAPinto, we have no paywall, we have no membership. Everything is free to read. It's free to get the daily newsletter. It's free to download our app. And that has not changed, and that will not change. But in past years, when I reached out to our publishers to say, hey, do you want an opportunity or a way for readers to be able to donate to your site? The answer that came back year after year was no. And that answer changed about a year ago. And I went out to our publishers, and the vast majority said yes. And why? Because basically every publication in New Jersey on the local level is now behind a paywall other than us. And so the idea was we don't want to play paywall, but if we can give readers the ability to support our local journalism, then that would be great. And that's what we developed. It's a way for them to support the local journalism. The money goes to our local publishers to reinvest in more local journalism. And the other reason why we did it was in our annual reader survey, which we do every year. This year, which we do it in the summer. This summer, when we did it, we literally had thousands of readers say, hey, we love what you're doing, but we'd like to see even more local news coverage. And that's great. And we want to be able to provide it, but that costs money. And so if you want more local news coverage, then support your local TAPinto site, donate to them, and give them more resources to be able to hire more reporters to cover the local news in your community. And so that's also, I think, a win-win for all of our communities as well. We've done a lot of other things, but I think that's a good sampling for us to talk about. And just all of that has been done in the last 6 to 9 months here at TAPinto.
Yeah. I don't think you even got into the CMS piece, did you? Weren't you talking about that? Is that what it is? CRM.
Oh yeah, we're building a CRM for next year. So yeah, that's our net project for next year is building a CRM into our content management system, which will be useful not only for our TAPinto publishers, but also for our licensees who use the Hyperlocal News Network. And I think that's going to be a really big help to both kinds of publishers, because right now, on the on the TAPinto side, we use HubSpot. And, it's really not built for publishers. So
Yeah.
for a lot of our TAPinto publishers, it's way overcomplicated. It's difficult to use, et cetera. And so we're going to be building our own CRM that is built for publishers and simplifying it, making it very user friendly. And then that same system will be available to our Hyperlocal News Network licensees as part of their license. So there will be no additional cost to our licensees to use that CRM as well.
Yeah, CRMs, they really get away with charging a ton of money for something that is not custom. Like I've tried HubSpot, I've tried Salesforce for my business, which is kind of, different. We do podcasts for local media companies and stuff. But I've tried them, and then it gets so expensive, and I'm like, I can do all this in my Google Drive, in my Google Sheets for the most part, on my smaller scale and everything. But yeah. So let me ask you, that is a lot of stuff that you covered there. I don't think I asked this on the initial call. How do you think? So you have you told me before you have a development team to kind of put all this stuff together. How do you like as a business owner make the decisions of what initiatives to take on? Is it totally driven by what your people are telling you, or will you get the most value? How do you think about that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Some of our best ideas have come from our publishers, and we have a number of vehicles for them to suggest ideas from, an annual survey of our publishers. I do a monthly CEO collaboration meeting with all of our publishers and me where they can share ideas, they can ask for new features, changes, anything like that. We also have a monthly franchisee roundtable where I'll demo a piece of new technology that we just deployed for them, and then also open the floor to anything else that they might want to talk about. We also have a support team of 3 full-time customer service specialists. They often get requests for changes, for new technology and things like that. All of this funnels up to me, and I meet with our developers literally every day. And so we kind of map out every week in terms of what the priorities are. So we're typically always working on 1 or 2 large projects. Then we're typically also working on adding some small new features. And then we're typically working on, a handful, maybe less, of bugs people have reported. The bugs always take the priority, so we want to get those fixed first.
Yeah.
And then, if we have like a small feature that will add value to either our publishers, our readers, or our advertisers, the more value it will provide, the more I prioritize it in terms of getting it done. Same thing with the large projects. I look at, okay, what's the amount of time we're going to need to spend to do this? And then what's the value that that's going to provide to either our publishers, our readers, or our advertisers? And try to prioritize based on those kinds of characteristics, because, you don't, and it's evolved over time. It used to be where people were going to, publishers or an advertiser or whatever would suggest something and we would just automatically do it. Now we look at it and go, okay, does this make sense to do? What kind of value does this provide? And then where do I put this in the development kind of timetable? Because there are things that, for example, are a larger priority versus a smaller priority. And I actually have a list, which I'm looking at now in front of me, that's constantly in front of me, of all the different things we're working on and the priorities and things like that. But just to give you an example, on our event listings, when a business or a nonprofit, et cetera, submits their event listing, they can include all kinds of information, including a link to their website. So a suggestion came to me, hey, it currently says website, and it really should say OUR website, so people understand it's
right.
Very simple kind of change, but where do you put that in the pecking order of things to get done? So
Right.
I had reached out to the developers and they said, look, Mike, it'll take us like 15 minutes to make this change. So
Just do it.
go ahead and make it.
Yeah.
We don't need to wait to make that, But like another example here is where we created functionality so that a business or a nonprofit can sponsor an article or a series of articles. And the way we built it was where they would, for example, there would be a start date and an end date of their sponsorship, but they're charged just one time for the sponsorship. And the idea was, well, who's going to be looking at the article in like 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, right? So you can just do it for a period of, have the sponsorship be for that period of time, 3 months, 6 months, whatever. And that's why you'd have a start and end date. But recently a publisher came to me and said, actually, if they're paying for the sponsorship of the article, the sponsorship should live forever. As long as the article lives forever, the sponsorship should live forever. So I met with the developers and they said, and I I agreed. I was like, that's a pretty good idea that should live forever. But then, like, how do we do that? And that's more complicated to do because the system is built with a start date and an end date. And so the publisher brought that to me about a week ago. And where I put that was, in the sprint that starts next week. We do our sprints in 2 weeks. So the sprint that starts next week, that project will start to be worked on. So it should be done basically 3 weeks after they suggested it. Because is it a good idea? Sure, it's a good idea, but is it something we need to do right away? No, it's not something we need to do right away. And so that's how we kind of work on these kinds of things.
Nice. Are you technical? I think I remember in our first conversation, I think you might have built the first website when you kind of launched the whole
No.
thing.
I have no technical bone in my body.
Okay. I was just curious if it's you talking to your developers and it's like, is this easy? Is this not easy? That's how I would be, at least.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Like you said.
Like,
yeah.
It's like, how much time, kind of like, is this small, medium, or large? How much time take? And then kind of mapping out in my head, okay, well, where does that go in terms of our priorities? An example is the donations. So we launched donations, I guess it was about a month ago, and we had a consultant that kind of advised on how it should look and all that kind of stuff. And we had a committee of our franchisees, our publishers, that also gave feedback, and we designed it with all that in mind. But then what we did was we put tracking on the back end or on the front end. So on all the elements of the donation platform, so we could see when the readers went, where they exited in the system. And what we found was they would get to the first screen, they would select their donation level, and then there would be a large drop off of people after that. And what we realized when we looked at the forums after knowing that was that we were, one, asking them to do too many steps, and two, asking them for too much information. So based on that, we redesigned the donation platform so it's just one page, and boom, boom, boom. They select their donation amount, they put in their credit card information, and they submit, and they're done, and that's it. And so that's going to go live Thursday night. But that was the kind of thing where, hey, this is important for us to fix as quickly as we can, because we had something like 2,000 people go to the donation platform, but we had like 40 make a donation. So it's like, all right, well, we don't want to lose all these people going to the donation platform. Let's improve the platform as quickly as we can and then push it out, because that way, out of that, we'll have a much higher percentage of the people coming who will donate if we can make these changes,
Nice. So of these these kind of new updates you've done to Hyperlocal and TAPinto, both, I guess. Curious, like, what's gotten the best feedback, or what's the biggest bang for your buck, both from your franchisees and from readers? But what's the feedback looked like for all of them?
Yeah, well, I think it was interesting because adding the add-on for people to be able to have their content displayed in the newsletter was a huge win. Previously, how it worked is when people paid for their content, there was no option to include it in the newsletter, but a lot of publishers were just including it in the newsletter for free.
Right. Okay.
But I was like, hey, you know what? And some of the franchisees too were like, hey, here's a potential revenue opportunity. And how cool would it be if the advertiser could actually choose when it appears in the newsletter? And then we created this. And literally, since we had it done, thousands and thousands of dollars have come in from people paying for it to appear in the newsletter. And then the other, I think, so that was one example. But the other part about it is that remember that if someone is an advertiser and content marketing is included as their advertising package, as part of their advertising package, they can choose use of the DIY platform as their content marketing. So the more we add features to the DIY platform, the more value we're providing to these advertisers, which is also a big win, because that increases retention of our advertisers, which is where we make our real bread and butter. All of our publishers make their bread and butter. Obviously, like someone who is paying for a sale on the calendar or in the deals and offers platform, that's great, but that's like incremental revenue compared to the revenue that our publishers are making from businesses and other organizations advertising on a consistent basis and having content marketing as part of their advertising package.
Local media publishers. You're already creating valuable local content. But what if I told you you're leaving serious money on the table every single week? Many local media outlets are only monetizing part of their inventory. Your stories are amazing and important to your communities, but they live and die on the page or in social. That means your ad space is maxed out, even though your content isn't. That's where localpod.co comes in. We turn your existing content into branded, automated podcasts with no extra work from your team. And we help you sell brand new audio ad inventory that didn't exist before. That means more ad revenue, deeper audience engagement, and zero added production time. If you're a local or niche publisher and want to grow your revenue without adding to your workload, go to localpod.co and book a free call. That's localpod.co. All right, back to the episode. Nice. Another question that I had that had popped up when you talked about the political op-eds that you started. How has the audience responded to that? Let's just say we live in a charged time politically sometimes. Has there anybody I don't know that everybody's a news hound that's like reads the huge opinion piece at the top of there. Has anybody got upset? And it might be different on local versus national politics.
Yeah, no.
Maybe not as...
Yeah, because we had... So one is, it also says sponsored content.
Right,
but
okay.
About, I guess, 2.5 weeks ago, I got an angry email from a reader going like, I went to this and I thought it was a news story and blah, blah, blah. And so
right.
I made the point to them, obviously, that it says sponsored content on it, that there's also a disclaimer at the bottom that says it's sponsored content.
Right.
But I said, to address your concern, what we'll do is we'll make the op-ed area where it says op-ed much larger too. So that way it can't possibly be confused as a news story. And that's what we did. It didn't satisfy them, but that's what we did.
Of course.
Nothing that was going to satisfy them.
Right.
I went back and forth with them and they were just not a reasonable person.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. I'll be on like a local Facebook message board and somebody will link to a story and the comments will be so wild. And then I'm like, if you read the first 2 sentences of the story, you would see that it's just like a clickbaity headline or whatever. But, that's a broader cultural issue that I don't think we're going to solve on this podcast right now. So
True. Yeah, but it's interesting too, because we do have an optional add-on for all content, including op-eds, that it can also be posted to the TAPinto Facebook page for that community. So we did see some pushback there too, obviously, where readers were writing in going, oh, like, can't believe you're, TAPinto is supporting this candidate or that issue. And we're like,
right.
No, we're not. It's an op-ed. It's sponsored. Yeah. It's sponsored on it, So then, what we did was I put out to all the publishers, look, if you get any of these, make sure you put when it goes to Facebook that it's a sponsored post. So that way, because that's something we should be doing anyway. But I said, we have to make sure we do that because otherwise a reader could say that. And if it doesn't say sponsored post on it, other readers are not going to necessarily chime in and go, hey, dum-dum, it says it's a sponsored post on it.
Yeah, I think it's a great move because, if I'm thinking as a political candidate, which I never strive to be, I don't think. But if I see my opposition putting up an op-ed, I'm like, wait, hold on a minute. Let me set the record straight. And, I could see the appeal of putting your own, sponsor piece up there also. So, local news is it's an important part of democracy locally and nationally. So I like it. I'm a fan. So you also said, I think you've added another franchise recently. You're getting close to 100 and you have to ring that bell when you get to 100.
Yeah.
And so kind of a 2-part question, I guess. I think I asked you on our first episode, who fits, maybe if somebody's listening to the podcast, who fits the profile of somebody if they want to start like a local news site and they, wind up franchising with TAPinto, who's that person look like? And the other thing is, with all these new features and everything that is already existing, what does it look like to say your new franchisee in Pompano Beach, I think? How do you educate them on all the bells and whistles and everything available to them? Because just even these new ones is a lot to take in. So how do you think about that? So 2-part question.
So I'll take the second first. So
okay.
Whenever we add a new feature like this, it's added into our training that we provide to a new franchisee.
Okay.
So just the initial training becomes longer and longer as we add more features into what we're doing. But it's always updated as we add new features. So when they become a franchisee, they're fully up to speed with everything that we offer and that they can offer for an advertiser. So that's important. On the other side, in terms of future publishers, basically, we look for people who have business development or sales backgrounds who either partner or hire writers and journalists to do the content side. So that's the most common model where they can do it each part-time and do it together like that. We also look for publishers who have a journalism background, who either also have a business background or will partner with someone who has the business background.
Right.
Third group are people who have both skill sets and do both the content and the sales side. And why we do this is because there's not a one size fits all for a given community. And we're really interested in helping to fill all these news deserts throughout the country. There's at least 1,800. I think that there's probably 5,000 or more that do not have a local newspaper, don't have a local news site. And so, in order to be able to fill all these communities from distressed areas, rural areas, Tony suburbs, and everywhere in between, there's not a one size fits all model that you can kind of just roll out to every community. So that's why we create this flexible opportunity for entrepreneurs to start a local news site in their community, and they can structure their business any way that they want to structure it. We're there to provide advice if they want advice or recommendations, but they can structure it any way that they want. So we have somewhere the franchisee does the business side, and they hire a journalist, and they hire them part-time, or they hire them full-time, or they hire a team of freelancers and pay them per story, or they partner with a journalist and give them a share of the revenue the site generates, or they're really close with that journalist and they make them a partner in the business, and vice versa. So you can structure the business any way that you want to be successful in your own community. But at the core, it's really important that you have the sales side nailed down and the content sale side nailed down. And also important that you care about the community that you're going to serve, and that you're committed to providing original local news reporting and original local news reporting that is not biased, that, is objective. I know Press Forward says you're not supposed to use the word objective anymore when you're talking about news, but to me, that's very important. We don't want people who have political agendas starting TAPinto sites, and we screen everybody that applies. I mean, we only approve about 40% of the people that apply, and largely the people that do not get approved. And by the way, it's a franchisee committee composed of franchisees that recommend to me whether someone should get approved to franchise or not. And that's one of the main things they're looking is, are these people doing it for the right reason? Which is, I'm doing it because I want to create a profitable business and I want to bring objective, original local news reporting to my community. Those are the two key things. And if either one of them is not true, you're not getting approved. And that's really important because, like I said, we want people that want to build a profitable business and at the same time want to help their community and bring objective, original local news reporting to their community.
That's awesome. I didn't know that you had I forgot what you called it, but the organization of the other
committee.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know that. I don't think we've gotten into that before, but that makes sense. I'm sure there's some interesting folks that apply or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm really thankful for that committee because it's an all-volunteer committee, and their interest is just making sure that we get really good publishers into the TAPinto network, and making sure that we do not bring into the network people who have ulterior motives in having a local news site. And it's interesting because I think that, we have a number of steps along the process. I mean, one, people have to apply. They have to meet with this committee. They have to get approved by the committee. Then they get their franchise agreement, which lays out that they have to be objective and they have to do at least one original local news story a day and follow the Society of Professional Journalists ethics. And then once they become a publisher, we obviously enforce that franchise agreement to make sure every publisher is doing at least one original local news story a day and following the Society of Professional Journalists ethical code. And I think that really sets us apart from a lot of other publishers out there where, there are no rules. If you're starting a one-off local news site in your community, you can basically do whatever you want. Now, that's positive in that you can do whatever you want, but it's also negative in that it doesn't screen for people who have political motivation or ulterior motives in starting a local news site. It's worse to have a local news site where the person's doing it because they want to, alter the politics of their community versus not even having a local news site, right? Because, it does more damage than not having a local news site. So it's incredibly important. But when I hear people who say, oh, well, it's a franchise model or whatever and kind of dismiss it, it's like, no, like we actually have much higher standard we have publications out there, and we have a rigorous process to determine who should be a publisher versus, hey, you turn on your computer and you jump on WordPress and create your own local news site. So I think that's very important, particularly in this age where you're dealing with all this misinformation and disinformation and AI and pink slime and all that kind of stuff. To have a screening process to ensure that the local news sites are being done for the right reasons is incredibly important.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that makes me like TAPinto even more. That's so cool. You guys, I think I asked you this before too, but I'm just curious for my own. Again, you guys are mostly on the East Coast, all 100 or close to 100 franchisees.
Yeah, we have
Like,
most of the sites in New Jersey, but we have 6 in Florida, 1 in New York, and 1 in Pennsylvania. But we can franchise in pretty much any state. Where we can't, under franchise law, there's some states that are called franchise registration states. There's about a handful of those. And in those, we would have to get approved to franchise in that state. But pretty much every other state in the country we can franchise in.
interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, I was just curious, like if you're looking to move geographically or if there's a reason why it's like that. I know my best friend in town here, him and his wife opened a Jimmy John's years ago, which is a franchise.
Yeah.
And I know they had to jump through a lot of, I don't know if Colorado is one of those states or not, but I'm wondering, I know they had to jump through a lot of hoops when they were getting started and everything, so it could be. But yeah, is there any
registration state? I'd have to look it up for you, but
is there do you have looks to expand across the country, or is it kind of geographically because like the network effect, people find out relationally? I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah, no, I mean, we definitely want to expand throughout the country. I think it's more of a matter of what we have learned is that if you're going to expand, part of our key of our model is that our sites can seamlessly share content with each other and they can sell advertising to each other. So if we expand to another state, what we're looking for is either a publisher that wants to do multiple TAPinto sites or a publisher that wants to do one TAPinto site but will help us find other potential publishers in neighboring towns that can become TAPinto franchisees so that all the publishers can take full advantage of the model. Because the last thing we want is like somebody who's on their own island or their own silo. They can still be successful, but they can't be as successful as having a network of publishers that you can work with, collaborate with, both on the content side and on the advertising side.
I see. So it kind of naturally makes sense for the model to grow, like almost like you'd expand through the South, expand eastward into the Midwest or something like that. That's interesting. I'm like visualizing it in my head as it kind of pops up and grows like that.
Yeah. That also makes it more difficult for us to expand because, like, if I get somebody who reaches out, like I had a guy reach out to me from Oregon, and we can franchise in Oregon, but when I talked to him, I said, look, like if you're going to do this, the way to be most successful is either to do multiple TAPinto sites, and you don't have to do them all, in day one, but to have a plan of like in the first 2 to 3 years that you're going to build out 3 to 5 TAPinto sites, right?
Right.
But if you're not going to do that, then all right, you're going to start one, but you're going to be committed to helping me find other publishers near you or potential publishers. Start one, because otherwise you're not going to be as successful, and we're going to have this like lone wolf site in Oregon.
Yeah, right.
Not being able to fully, take advantage of the model that we've built.
Okay, that's interesting. So somebody could pop up like where I am in Colorado, but I don't know the costs involved, but launching 3 or 5 of them, you probably need some solid financial backing and like team and everything like that. Just to
I mean, the franchise fees are very low for what we provide, but you would need obviously more capital than starting one franchise,
right?
Particularly on what you got alluded to is the journalism side. So whereas you can do a TAPinto site in a small to medium sized community with either a part-time reporter or a team of freelancers, if you're going to do like 3, 4, 5 sites, you're looking at probably like 2 full-time reporters to be able to do a good job. And that's if those towns are small to medium-sized. If they're large, like meaning a lot of population, a lot going on, to do 3 to 5 sites, you might need 3 to 5 full-time reporters. That's where the capital really would come in.
I see. Interesting stuff, man. What have I missed? What else new have I missed? My brain's kind of buzzing. I want to go a million different directions, but
Yeah, I mean, I think that we covered a lot of the main things. I mean, our big projects for next year is building the CRM, and then
Right.
also we're going to be building surveying software into the CMS so that local publishers can run surveys. We One of the things we want to do next year is throughout New Jersey, we want to do a Reader's Choice Best Restaurant where readers will be able to nominate restaurants and then vote on restaurants through this technology that we're going to be building next year. And then the other big thing that we're working on next year is to build more of GA4 and GAM into the CMS. So that way our publishers don't have to go to support to say, hey, can you run an advertising report for me? They'll be able to do it right through the content management system, as well as with GA4. Right now, we've built it so that they can see their site statistics, but they have to go to GA4 to like look up individual articles and things like that. We want to build that into the content management system too, so they don't have to do that, and it's very easy for them to be able to do.
Curious, a CRM, I just assume it's very complicated because they charge a lot of money. And once again, I'm not technical. According to your development team, what is that like on a scale of 1 to 10? Is that a heavy lift
Yeah,
to
it's
put
a very
together?
heavy. So
I
like we
thought
have a
so.
team
Yeah.
of 8 full-time developers, and it's going to take 4 to 5 full-time developers at least 9 months to do it, working
Wow.
full.
I had a feeling. It just seems like a robust piece of software, but it'll probably pay off in the long term, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea is like, it has to drop dead deadline has to be December of next year, but hopefully we'll get it done sooner than that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a game changer for our publishers because one, it's going to be a really easy to use system. Second is they'll be able to do things like right now, unless they have a sales seat in HubSpot, they can't do this. They're going to be able to, for example, send out like an email blast to their prospects right through the content management system using the CRM. Whereas right now, unless they have a sales seat in the HubSpot, they can't do stuff like that. So it's going to really be able to, they're going to, much better be able to market to their prospects and, do drip campaigns and things like that.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. I think the HubSpots and Salesforces of the world, I think I told you on our first call, I think they might be on their way out. I know people are getting surprise large increases in their bills and stuff. Just with things are getting easier to build and everything. I think organizations of a certain size are going to be able to just do it on their own. So kudos on that and taking the initiative there.
Well,
Cool, Mike. I think we talked about everything, man. Where can people find you? Which I link to in the show notes.
sure. Well, they can find me on LinkedIn at Michael Shapiro. They can email me at mshapiro@tapinto.net. Our website for people who might be interested in franchising is starttap.net. And if someone's an existing publisher, but they really like to explore having our technology and possibly our back office services, that's Hyperlocal News Network, our sister company, which is at hyperlocalnewsnetwork.com.
I will link to all that stuff. And I'll also link to the previous episodes with Mike. If any of this stuff is interesting and you want to learn more about kind of the story behind it and the founding and all that, really good stuff. Like I said, episode 1, and there's more people listening now than there were then. So go back and listen to that one if you're new to the show. Cool. Mike, thanks, man. Great to talk to you again.
Well, thanks so much, Paul. And I'm honored that I was the first, and I really appreciate you being on and really enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, awesome. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Small Press Big Ideas. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to help the show, the best thing you can do is to tell a friend or colleague and just take a few minutes to leave a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to right now. It only takes a minute out of your day, but it really does help the podcast grow and reach more ears. Check back for new episodes every Monday.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day, yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.